patriot, pledging to the flag. Also been a rebel, fighting against the man. Been a patriot, been a rebel too. I've been a coward who fled fast away. Also been a hero who saved the day. Been a coward, been a hero too.
Okay, we're ready to go?
We're ready to go.
Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Silky Malik and I'm here with Joseph Say. We are with Pantsuit Republic Texas. We're hoping to get Houstonians more involved in the democratic process and to give folks a glimpse of, who are the people that are running for office, who are the people that are elected officials, and generally, who are the movers and shakers in Houston that are pushing forward the activism culture we have here that's just continuing to grow daily. That's a big goal with PSRs.
Absolutely.
To bring focus onto that. And today we have with us Sri Preston Kulkarni, and Joseph is going to introduce him, and then we'll start asking him questions. He was nice enough to sit down with us for a series of fun questions.
Mm-hmm. Right, on the last day of fundraising, so
yeah,
we made sure to take time out.
Put the fun in fundraising.
We put the fun in fundraising, exactly.
That's right.
So Sri, I'm going to go ahead and ask you a series of questions. Me and Silky will. Just kind of think through them. They're meant to be very serious. So I want you to address them appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you are running for Congress after all.
Yeah.
Very
You are
important
running for
questions,
Congress.
yes.
And so one thing I've always asked or wondered from my representatives is, what is your zombie survival plan?
So if you've ever seen World War Z,
I have.
You notice that they respond to zombies very differently based on their culture. So
Right.
In Israel-Palestine, they built a wall around it. And in China, they basically blocked out all communication with the outside world. In Russia, they actually just went and slaughtered all the zombies. I think the fact that we have such a diverse district gives us a special advantage in a zombie apocalypse, because we could reach out to every single part of these communities, to the Chinese community, the Indian community, the Mexican American, the Nigerian, and all of us have different skills that we bring to the table. But at the very least, I would like to have at least one melee weapon with me, because that's what happens.
Ooh, I like that.
In zombie movies.
Melee weapons.
Yes.
See,
I like that
this
he
is a
wants to
smart-
stay in his district and
Yeah.
band together with his
Yeah.
constituents, where I'm like, how do I get to Canada? How do I escape the zombies? Because I'm not so brave.
See, what I like is he said melee weapon, because he's in it for a long haul.
Yeah,
You know?
no, I mean, seriously, that's what always happens in zombie movies, is that, people get cornered and they don't know what to do, they're just running. You need to have something to defend yourself with,
Exactly.
but you also need to work with other people as a team, because individuals always get picked off in zombie movies.
This is so true. Gotta band together. See, I
Absolutely
like that. Okay, so
I think that was good.
I know.
You told me to take it seriously.
Why did I? Wait, I like that. That's what we want in our representatives.
Yeah.
Folks can defend us in the zombie apocalypse. Okay, so what is your most treasured childhood memory?
My most treasured childhood memory, probably the trip that I took with my family all the way up the East Coast. We kind of broke down a couple of times, but we would just do these long road trips. Every year we would travel somewhere, either whether to Europe or to India or just around America. So I've gotten to see 48 out of 50 states
Oh wow.
in the United
Which
States.
state have you not?
I have not been to North Dakota or Alaska.
Oh.
Yeah. But every other state I've been to, and as a kid, we took a trip up the East Coast, and like I said, the car broke down a couple of times, and we made it all the way to Canada, and then we came back down with my family. But I still remember the songs that were playing. We had a cassette tape, and we had, I think, three tapes.
For our young viewers, before there were streaming and whatnot online, we had to listen to music via cassette tapes. Google it. Yeah.
It was on magnetic media. Anyway,
That's
I won't
right.
get into the details.
And you could bootleg things off the radio.
You
because-
could,
Yes.
and if you were really good, you would avoid the DJ and the commercial.
Exactly.
The mixtape.
That was a talent. The mixtape.
The
That was a
mixtape.
talent.
Yeah, so we actually listened to Bridge Over Troubled Waters is one of the three tapes that we listened to
That's a
again
really
and again.
good
So I
one.
know the words to every song on that album.
Just listen to it for like 9 hours
Yeah.
straight or something. You have a large family.
I'm fairly
Several
large.
siblings.
So I have 2 brothers and a sister, and then of
Okay.
course my extended family, which is gigantic. But
You guys didn't all travel together, right?
yeah, actually we did.
That is the Dacey way.
My little brother and sister were 2 and an infant at the time, and each one of us had a call sign. So I was Shotgun, my brother was Scampy, my sister was Pocahontas, and my little brother, who was less than 6 months old, was Little Papoose.
That's really cute.
Yeah.
That is.
That's a good advertisement for having several siblings. I only have the one. Our nicknames for each other were not so cute and pleasant. You get to ask the next one, Jason.
Okay, so if you had to choose between a life of public service or a life of leisure, which would you choose and why?
I mean, I would choose a life of public service. Well, because at least in my public service, I get to travel around the world, and so I got a lot more experiences than you might have just sort of going to one place for 2 days in Cancun or something. I got to actually experience all these other cultures. But I guess more than that, you have to have something that you care about, something that motivates you. I mean, the truth is, when they look at people's motivation, I mean, pay has something to do with it, but it doesn't have as much to do with it as people really think.
Right.
People want to contribute, they want to have meaning in their work and their life, and I mean, that's why I did what I did in the Foreign Service. That's what I'm doing right now. When I felt like I wasn't really contributing and I wasn't proud of what I was doing in the federal government, I decided it was time to resign. And
then never relax again by running for office.
Well, but I don't know. I get fulfillment out of this. The day that I resigned, it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, because working in the State Department, I had to keep explaining things that were unexplainable and normalizing things that were abnormal.
Wow.
And I didn't feel proud of myself the last couple of months, because things have gotten so strange in our country in the last couple of years. And the only thing that made me feel sane was being able to speak out against it, or just not speak out against it, but speak out for the things that I believe in. You know, a country that respects everybody regardless of your gender, your race, your religion. Things that we used to assume.
That makes sense. That
right?
sounds like that makes sense. How long into the new administration did you work before you quit?
So I was actually out of the State Department when the election happened. And I came back in after a year doing a mid-career program at Harvard. I came back in and I was trying to give it my best. But after the Nazi
You were
rally,
the same people on the inside trying to keep it together. And then,
This is the argument. This is the argument. And I've had this debate with my friends back there that you have to keep the organization strong. And I see what they're saying, and you know, most of them are still there, but a lot of us have quit the State Department in the last couple of years because we're not really doing diplomacy anymore.
Right.
And for me, the two biggest things were the Nazi rally in Charlottesville.
Right.
Usually in public affairs, the first day they tell you, you know, if there's ever a chance to condemn Nazis, just do it. You know,
right.
Think about that.
Right.
It's like day one.
Yeah, but that's not what we did last year. And then the other one was the Roy Moore campaign. And I'm pretty sure for anybody that's religious out there that this was a test from God. We're going to send you the worst candidate ever and decide, are you going to pick party or country? And some people did not pick country over party. They actually picked the guy who molested 14-year-old girls and thought that homosexuality should be illegal and that Muslims shouldn't be able to hold office, and our families were stronger when we had slaves. They picked that guy.
That guy, not so good for America.
Yeah, and at that point I realized there really is no red line. I don't know how much worse it can get if we don't do something about it. And so for me, that meant resigning, coming back home, and I swear to God, you know, I'm exhausted. We do 7 days a week, 18 hours a day on this campaign.
Yeah, I saw it, like, you don't even look at anything until like 1 or 2 a.m. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
That's good. You look fresh faced, like,
right.
You don't.
Sure.
Away,
But don't look at the timestamp when I post things on Facebook, because then you'll see what time I actually got finished with work.
I've learned to ignore the timestamp.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually find that really, it must have been very difficult after so long in the State Department to. Most important thing you want to accomplish when you get elected?
The single most important thing, and there's a lot of issues that are really big. People ask me what's the biggest issue. Climate change is something that's irreversible. Healthcare, it affects our entire country, and it's probably the number one issue that people ask me about. There's a lot of things that are just, I think, unconscionable happening right now with the rate of gun violence, you know, the separation of children. But honestly, above all of those things is I just want to return some sort of sense of decency and sanity back to our government. Because if you saw the hearings this last week, right? It seems like we're completely disconnected from reality. I don't understand what's happening every single day. And I think the willingness to sit down and listen to people you disagree with, you know, and still try to do the best thing for everybody in society, I don't see that anywhere. And I always tell people in Iraq, if I could sit down at the table with people I knew were trying to kill me. I knew were trying to kill me because we had intelligence that said they were paying for roadside bombs and rockets to attack the base we lived on. If I can sit down with somebody who's trying to kill me, I can sit down with a Republican and try to work something out. And that doesn't mean to say, I know there's a lot of people that say, no, that means you're not standing up for progressive values.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you.
I think you absolutely stand up for progressive values, but you do it in a way that's progressive without being aggressive, you know? You don't have to yell at people. You don't have, what we see all the time, and I see it with my friends.
That's the diplomat in him. You can't help
What's
it.
like the Mr. Rogers?
Yeah.
I know.
Mr. Rogers are just lost societal ills. We did in a very calm,
Yeah, exactly.
even voice.
Yeah, you can do that. You can, I mean, and sometimes you do it kind of from a sideways direction, because if you attack somebody directly, they just get more defensive. You mentioned Mr. Rogers. The analogy I was thinking of was, I'm kind of a sci-fi geek, Star Trek and whatnot. There was an
Very good
episode.
company.
Yes,
There was an episode of Star Trek where they came to this group of 2 planets that were at war. And they were at war, and on one planet they were half black on the left side and half white on the right side.
Yeah.
And the other planet they were half white on the left side and half black on the right side. And they couldn't see that these differences were so minute they didn't really make a significant difference. But of course, Captain Kirk and the Enterprise could. And at the time, in the middle of the civil rights movement in the 60s, if you had done a program about this conflict over rights of minorities and voting rights and everything that was going on in the streets, you would not have been able to put that on TV. But they had a very clever way of talking about it, because when you talk about it as an alien planet where people are fighting over black and white, you realize like how destructive we can be towards each other, And so, that's the kind of thing. Sometimes when I don't talk directly about the thing that I disagree with the person about, we talk about it from a sideways manner, but you do it politely. You let them come in. I've had people join our campaign who disagree with me on everything. Literally, they're like, I've had single issue pro-life voters join the campaign. I had a guy who said that collusion with the Russians was Hillary Clinton, I had a guy who said, I'm a Tea Party Republican. I don't believe Barack Obama was born in this country, who all donated in support of the campaign, because I don't talk down to them. I don't insult them. I just listen to them. And I think that's the real key there, because what I get from my friends on the other side is that you're always looking down at us. You're condescending. You liberals,
elite,
yes, you liberals look down on us. And I'm not trying to look down on anybody, but at the same time, the things that we're fighting for, they like a clean environment, a public education system, safe schools, women's rights.
Right.
These affect everybody, not just Democrats, not just liberals, not just progressive. These are good for all of us. And so I'm trying to do the best for all of them. And that's why I need to listen to their concerns. And if they trust you, even if they don't agree with you on everything, if they trust that you're being honest, then people will be willing to support you. Exactly. The compassion, reason, and decency that we're missing from our government is exactly what I'm fighting for right now.
And I think the folks who you have been sort of convincing to cross the aisle and maybe vote Democrat, I think the reason for that is in part, your opponent. There's something to be said about folks being tired of candidates and incumbents who have no problem going very low and saying things that no public official should ever say about parts of their own constituency. Just because I'm Indian doesn't mean I'm okay with a representative calling my Pakistani friends terrorists. I say this as someone married to a Pakistani person. Not all Indians enjoy talking crap about Pakistani people and vice versa. And I think your approach to just being honest and transparent is really resonating, obviously, because you're having all kinds of different folks coming on over and participating.
And just because I'm a man doesn't mean that I think that men don't have a responsibility after a woman gets pregnant. So when our representative said men don't have an X chromosome, which means they can't get pregnant, which means they shouldn't have to pay for prenatal care. A, sorry, sir, everybody has an X chromosome. B, if you understand how a baby is made, it usually involves a man and a woman. So the idea that you end your responsibility at that moment of conception, I think that's kind of at the heart of a lot of these disagreements that we have. Or, the idea that, you're not in control of your own body, which I think that relates to both women's reproductive rights, but it also relates to what we've been talking about this past week, where somebody who clearly did not respect many women's rights people's right to their own body, maybe making decisions about what other people can do with their body all over the country
And that's
for
scary.
life. Yes, it scares me a lot because you could see the kind of temperament that somebody has like that. I mean, even if the guy's conservative, he's on the other side.
Hey, we've had conservative courts. That's different. You need a justice who has the right temperament.
Exactly, and like there's a lot of people, myself included, who have been disappointed with some of the things that Gorsuch has voted on his rulings. I mean, there's lots of conservative versus liberal disagreements. But what we saw this week was much worse than that. If you saw the interaction between Judge Kavanaugh and Amy Klobuchar,
I was astounded at how disrespectful anyone could be to a senator. I mean, it was appalling. It was appalling.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about a guy who drank so heavily, he would comment on it, and everyone would comment on it. His best friend wrote a book about being wasted.
Bart O'Kavanaugh?
Yeah, Bart O'Kavanaugh.
No relation.
Right? And of course, it's a question that you should be asking. All right, is it possible that you don't remember this incident because you were blackout drunk? And his response was, "Well, did you ever get blackout drunk?"
So disrespectful. It was very unbecoming. That's what it was. I just couldn't believe it.
Not only that, he said that to a senator whose father was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how disrespectful that is? And so
we don't have to imagine, right?
Yeah.
But we saw how
Tens of
disrespectful
millions
it
of
was.
people had to watch it for 5 hours.
Yeah. And so I don't know. The idea that you can't find a judge anywhere in the country to go on the Supreme Court, one of the 9 highest judges in the entire land, who's going to be there for a lifetime appointment.
Right.
You can't find one that doesn't have a couple sexual assault allegations against them. I mean, what they said was,
like there's several to choose
they
from.
said, well, if this happens, then anybody can be accused. I was like, no, actually Gorsuch, who we
Right.
supposed to disagree with, did not get accused of this.
It's not a liberal conspiracy. Everyone dislikes folks who commit sexual assaults.
Yeah, and I mean, the truth is, when they say, well, everybody can be accused of that, I said, well, it depends on whether you actually are a person who does stuff like this.
I personally have never known a man who was accused of sexual assault. There are lots of men who don't commit sexual assault.
On the other hand, I have known numerous women who have experienced it. I mean, the number, I can't even count the number of women who've experienced some sexual assault in their lives. And so, I remember being in working in the Senate, and somebody said, well, if that's considered sexual assault, then we would have to kick out half of Congress. And I said,
maybe we should.
Maybe we do.
So what?
Let's start over.
What's the harm in that? Because the truth is, and you can tell from the initial reaction before they knew whether Kavanaugh was going to deny these completely or not he was 17. Everybody does this.
Yeah.
No.
And then he denied it completely. Now it's like, well, okay, her story is not credible. But going back to the original story, even if it was credible, people were willing to dismiss it. That tells you all you need to know. It doesn't matter. The back and forth over what he said, she said, it doesn't matter because they were willing to take it anyway.
Yeah.
So just admit it. You don't think that sexual assault is a problem in our society.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, if that's your position, then state it clearly so we all know what the score is.
Well, that's the thing that always upsets me is that there are no rules against sexual harassment in the workplace in so many parts of our government. They're worried about how do we protect the new interns? How do we, oh my God, why is this okay? Why are we allowing elected officials to be handsy with the interns or with anyone?
Yeah, but the thing is that it's not just about one person. And I'll admit something. There was a person who was on this campaign in the very beginning of it who, on the night of our primary win in March, he did some things that were very inappropriate, and I got several complaints about it. And he had been a big supporter. And I said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to step away from this campaign.
Right.
He was really apologetic. He was embarrassed. He was ashamed. He said, I got drunk. I said, you know what? It's not just about you. This is a societal issue, and we need to have these kind of discussions. But I can't have anybody on my campaign who behaves in this way. And
then the women on your staff who would have to continue working with him just because he apologized. That's uncomfortable for everyone.
But I mean, the truth is, it's a bigger problem than just one person. We need to be teaching people at a very young age that this is not part of society. It's not part of society in 2018. I mean, it's been part of human history for thousands of years, but there's a lot of things that were part of human history that we did away with. Slavery was part of human history for thousands of years. we don't accept that today. We shouldn't accept sexual assault today.
I agree.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Nothing more to say on that right now, because that's the best way to end it. Exactly. Okay, so this is something I think that's pertinent to all three of us, especially since we do come from immigrant backgrounds in some way. Do you support the immigrant community, and what would you do to assist them if elected, when elected?
Yeah. So first of all, I consider everybody to be part of the immigrant community. I always say my dad immigrated here in 1969, but my mom's family immigrated here in the 1600s. We've always been an immigrant country, and we always will be.
Right.
And at different points in our history, immigrants have been demonized. And it wasn't always the same immigrants. Sometimes it was Irish, Polish, Catholics, Chinese, now Mexicans, Muslims. Whoever it is, there's always going to be a fear that our culture is being diluted, or we're not the same country we were before. As Laura Ingraham said very clearly about a month ago, demographic changes that we did not vote for are doing away with the country that we know and love. And my response is no. The country that I know and love has always been a shining beacon of freedom and a dream for people all over the world to come here, to immigrate, to make a better life for themselves. So in terms of supporting the immigrant community, I think that goes from top to bottom. First of all, we need to have a humane immigration system.
Right.
When people are fleeing horrible violence, and we have a refugee crisis all over the world, not just here in the United States. We need to be humane enough that we can deal with people and not try to take away a 1-year-old child from their mother and send them to states across the country because we think that's going to stop MS-13. I'm sorry. No gang is being stopped by taking away an infant from their mother.
Exactly.
Secondly, at the other end of the spectrum, we have people coming from all over the world, but we have certain caps on immigration from specific countries. Now, it's not an economic justification. It literally is a worry that we're gonna look too much like this. We're gonna have too many brown people or too many Chinese people here. And personally, I don't think that makes sense for America in 2018. I mean, if we have skilled labor needs, immigrants have always been an engine of our economy. They don't detract from the economy. You look at the number of Fortune 500 companies that are started by immigrants; it's over half. And so, I mean, in terms of supporting the immigrant community,
I feel like your campaign has done an incredible. I mean, this is one of the ones in Texas that I can think of right off the bat that has been working overtime to include people from literally every community. It's sort of y'all's thing. It's really great.
It is kind of our thing. So in this district, we have 25% foreign-born population, 35% people speak another language at home. And what we've done is we've reached out in 13 different languages. No other campaign in the country is doing that.
Yes.
We're trying to include everybody in this election. So that means Indian Americans, Pakistani Americans, Bangladeshi, Chinese Americans, Arab Americans, Persian Americans, Latino Americans, all of these different groups, African Americans, Nigerian, Ugandan immigrants from Africa, also in the process. And to me, that's the perfect antidote to this anti-immigrant sentiment that we see being whipped up by people in positions of power, which is really dangerous. We've seen it before, but it's coming back again. That negative, that hostile, divisive spirit that's spreading across this country. The perfect antidote to that is to engage those immigrant communities, bring everybody in. Somebody asked the other day, they said, if you win in November, it's going to be because blank. And I said, it's going to be because all of our communities actually participate in the election. That's what it's going to be because we have the second most diverse district in the entire country. Over 100 languages spoken here.
I didn't realize that.
The only one that's more diverse is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Queens, New York.
Yeah.
And so...
Oh, yeah, well, we definitely need someone who looks like the district to be representing the district.
Absolutely.
We've never had any diversity. We're 60% minority, never had a woman representing this district, ever.
Well, I'm very excited to see that change. And, okay, so we covered zombies, covered a lot. We
can talk more about zombies. I got a whole strategy.
I feel like
we may have.
I'm coming to 22 when the zombies hit. Because
we may have to come back to talk just about zombies.
Right. I'm going to give you my 14-point zombie plan, actually.
I need it bound, sent out to everyone. Be prepared for it. Okay, what's the last TV show? I know it's not all on TV now. That you binge watched. That is the only way we watch TV knows.
So I don't get to watch too much TV unless it's after 1 a.m.
Okay, this
you know?
is even pre-campaign.
But I would say The Americans.
Oh,
I've
that's a
been
good
waiting
show.
to, it's intense though.
Yeah, so you know, I served in Russia, and I also did counter-Russian propaganda here. And so for me, you know, I have a lot of friends in that world. You know, I'm State Department, not CIA, but
I mean, would the CIA tell us they were CIA? Okay, let's.
Anyway, so I understand that world a little bit, and it's very interesting and not too unrealistic of a show. I mean, these people really did exist. These spies were embedded in America for decades, and some of them only got discovered in 2012, 2013.
They stayed loyal to Russia the whole time?
Yeah. Even after the fall of the Soviet Union.
Oh, wow.
They continued, and they were, some of, like I said, were found like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Were found out they've been pretending to be Americans for decades. The only thing is, with everything that's going on now with the Russian government, it gets kind of
I'm
scary.
like, I'll watch it after 2020.
I mean, it's one thing to have like somebody placed in a random business around DC. It's another thing to worry about the influence of the Russian government on much higher positions in America.
Yes,
I'll leave it at that.
I agree. We'll leave it at that. Do you have anything you'd like to say before we end?
I just want to say that this election, literally, I think, is the most important election of our lifetimes. The reason I say that, without any exaggeration, because I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that. I wouldn't have resigned from the Foreign Service. I'd still be serving overseas. The reason I believe that is because I think what's on the ballot this year is not Republican versus Democrat. It's who are we as a country? Are we going to be a country that divides ourselves up, that allows us to be split up by race, by gender, by ethnicity, by religion? Or are we going to still be that country that is inviting to the entire world, that country that people dream of coming to? That's on the ballot right now. We have a choice: hostility, fear, division, or reason, compassion, and decency. And if you choose reason, compassion, and decency, I need your help. I need everyone out there to make sure they come out. First, contact everybody in your phone book. At least let one of the campaigns, our campaign or another campaign around, let them know who's in your phone book. The reason I say that is because everybody that you know, whether you think they're a voter or not, we can tell whether they're voting. So your network, your phone is the most valuable thing you have.
Okay.
And if you have, I guarantee you, each person here has a minimum of 100 voters in their phone. But our campaigns aren't necessarily going to be able to find those voters unless we go through you and get to your friends and your networks. And especially if you're connected within the Indian community, the Pakistani community, the Filipino community, or any one of these other communities that doesn't usually get touched, that nobody's coming out from, make sure we leverage that. Diversity is our strength, but it's also our weakness. Right. It's our strength because we can reach into all of these different parts of our society, whereas people on the other side can't. It's our weakness because we don't think of ourselves as one big community.
Right.
And if we think of ourselves as one big community, if we pull in all of our networks, if we actually contact our friends, our family, our neighbors, and let them know how important this election is, then we can win, and not just win in an angry, hostile way, but we can win in an inclusive way that actually resolves the problem that we face, which is lack of trust in our society. We can bring our community back together, and we can have a more positive society for everyone.
That's fantastic. We're just going to leave it at that.
Yeah,
Thank you
perfect.
so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you so much.
Please vote. We're 3 weeks until early voting.
Yes.
If you live in Sugar Land, Pearland, or Katy.
Or Clear Lake.
Or Clear Lake. Please vote for Sri Preston Kulkarni. I always want to say it really fast.
SPK.
SPK. And donate, right?
Yeah, so you can donate on our website, kulkarniforcongress.com. There's a big red donate button. You can sign up to volunteer there to get a yard sign. Up until October 9th, then you can register to vote. If you're not registered, or check your registration on register2vote.org. That's the number 2, register2vote.org. Check your registration until October 9th, and then make sure, if you can, volunteer with a campaign. And please, starting October 22nd, make sure you vote, your family votes, your friends vote, your colleagues vote. Every single person comes out to vote. And I don't even care whether they're Republican or Democrat, because if more people come out to vote, then we win.
Exactly. Thank you.
I've been a patriot, pledging to the flag. Also been a rebel, fighting against the man. Been a patriot, been a rebel too. I've been a coward who fled fast away. Also been a hero who saved the day. Been a coward, been a hero too.